More school board meetings have been very well attended this summer. The anger of some school patrons has literally spilled into the streets. Some more school officials are worried that anger could spill into the ballot box. The patrons are fired up over the firing of 6 elementary administrators who stand accused of padding their school expense accounts. Many of those patrons hold School Superintendent Bob Spence responsible for those terminations, since the school board fired the administrators on Spence's recommendation. Some of those same patrons have vowed to defeat a $4.5 million school bond proposal, which will be voted on next week. Superintendent Spence today resigned his post in hopes of helping that bond issue pass.
The bond issue must pass. This district has never failed an issue. If they fail their first one, their second one will be easier to defeat. I feel that removing me as an issue, they can vote on the merits of the issue. And intelligent people who study that issue will see that it's a tremendously positive issue for that school community.
In his resignation statement, Superintendent Spence called on the fired administrators to follow his lead and quit.
Well, if Mr. Spence wants to resign while being investigated by the citizens, that's his option. My clients have been accused. The school district has spent $164,000 attempting to litigate with them. My clients are going to go the full yard. They want their innocence established. They will not resign. They want to be tried. They want to be proven innocent.
Darby Brackenhoff has been one of the more outspoken opponents of the educators' firings. She doesn't think today's announcement will affect next Tuesday's vote.
The issues that existed still exist. His resignation changes nothing insofar as the concerns that people have about actual buildings and combinations of grades are still there. Their dissatisfaction still exists in that we don't have the input that we would like to have into the long-range planning of the schools for our own children.
Brackenhoff and other members of Citizens for Affairs School Board will meet tonight to discuss the current situation. That meeting is scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock in the Moore Community Center. Scott Wallace, Action 4 and More.
Most elevators across the country are filled near capacity, and this is the case for storage facilities in Oklahoma. Farmers are putting their wheat in a government reserve program in order to get more money for their product. When farmers choose this route, the local elevator has to hold the wheat. This could be a problem, according to Mike Frickensmith with the Oklahoma Wheat Commission.
With the current government program, since farmers can put their grain on reserve storage for a 3-year period, wheat harvest this next year could have some storage problems if we have any kind of average harvest at all, looking at maybe 170 million bushels plus average harvest.
The real problem will be in states up north where corn and soybeans are also being stored. Frickensmith says if farmers could get a better price for their product, we wouldn't be talking of storage problems in Oklahoma because farmers wouldn't be taking part in the government reserve program. They would be selling their wheat on the open market. Ben McCain, Action 4.
You know what happened to you. You know how you got sucked in. You know how you were taken. And you were taken. Responsibility. Somebody might not put it on your shoulder, but I'm going to put it on your shoulder. When you tell me you don't want disclosure, well, then if you don't want disclosure and you want to remain a top officer in your credit union and you want that responsibility, you better hell find out.
Representative Frank Annunzio told executives of credit unions and savings and loans they hadn't been careful enough with the public's money. 140 credit unions had more than $100 million in uninsured deposits in Penn Square Bank. Credit union officers blamed federal regulators and money brokers for not giving them enough information, and one warned that other failures are possible.
Number one, I've always thought that large bankers knew what they were doing, and it appears that maybe they don't. Any bank could go under just by one of its clients going under.
The committee then called 2 money brokers to testify. One said Penn Square's problems should have been made public.
Had information been available in '78 or 79 as to the either unlawful or irregular banking practices that there wouldn't have been in Penn Square in 1982.
The committee chairman thinks he knows why Penn Square's fallout is so widespread.
Financial institutions, big and small, are overcome by greed and let greed take over good judgment. They sort of want you to believe in Santa Claus with some of the explanations they give you here.
St. Germain also says it's time for the controller of the currency to make his information available to the general public. He says depositors of Penn Square Bank should have known about the bank's problems before it failed. Next year, St. Germain plans to introduce legislation that would require the controller to make such disclosures. Bill Ross, Action 4, Washington.
Like most nomads on the rodeo circuit, he travels light. But instead of ropes or saddles, his trade consists of bandage and tape. Don Andrews is a rodeo trainer.
When it was hurting it quite a bit, it was like right on this little bone right here.
How about just in front of it?
No.
Don is a welcome sight to steer ropers and clowns alike. Unlike most professional sports, rodeo cowboys rarely have the luxury of having someone tape their ankles or wrists. But Don's duties aren't limited to the locker room.
He's set to go now. Here's a man that we watched tie a calf for the very first time in the game.
The arena is where the action is. Don is often called upon to bandage cuts and scrapes, and sometimes just help mend a bruised ego after a rough ride. Despite the travel and one-night stops in little towns all over the country, this trainer says it's a wonderful life, one he wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
I think if a lot of people found out exactly what my job is and what it's like being around this group, there'd be a lot more people after it. I don't think a lot of people realize that the rodeo cowboy is a professional athlete as much as in the NFL, NBA, anything else. The main difference is that he is his own boss. There are no general managers, no coaches. He goes where he wants, does what he wants, and that's the reason our program came into being. And I'll have to say that I've learned probably more than they have learned from me. In other words, they've taught me as much, if not more, than I've taught them.
The next stop may be Tucson, or Cheyenne, or maybe even Santa Fe. But it doesn't really matter. These rodeo men and cowhands are his family, a family he won't leave as long as he's needed. At the State Fair, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
For all practical purposes, today is the beginning of a new year if you work for the federal government. As the old fiscal year came to an end, so did the money to pay federal employees. The government is entering a new business year in a state of confusion. Like the past several years, people have come to work at federal jobs, hoping that Congress will appropriate money for salaries. Employees say they are used to the federal government's money problems.
It's really no problem for this year. As you probably know, we've had the same problem come up in the last couple of years, whereby the Congress has failed to enact the various budgetary provisions for particular agencies before the expiration of one fiscal year. And so we're kind of used to that now, and really, to be quite honest, it hasn't affected us at all up to the present time.
October 1st is also the starting date of some new Oklahoma laws. For example, turkey drugs have been outlawed, unless of course given to turkeys. The drugs are legal substances that are passed off as illegal drugs. It used to be a shoplifter or a bad check writer had to rip off at least $20 worth of goods for it to be considered a felony. The figure as of today is up to $50. And finally, another law taking effect is one providing for automatic driver's license suspension. A motorist will lose a license if he or she fails a roadside alcohol breath test or refuses to take it. Until today, the state could not suspend licenses unless motorists were convicted of driving while under the influence of alcohol. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Coupled with that, if the court finds that such a rule, be it court rule or jail rule, is proper. Secondly, whether or not the rule in this case is reasonable.
As far as everything is concerned, the bank is operational just like it was last week. There's no concern, shouldn't be any concern on anyone's part.
Well, there were two people ahead of me who wished to close their accounts, but when I finally reached the teller, why, I only wished enough money to carry me through for about a month, and I chose to leave my money where it is. As far as I'm concerned, the bank is solvent.
The drama began when Trooper Charles Blunt clocked a white Datsun traveling 81 miles per hour on Interstate 40. While questioning the car's female driver, Trooper Blunt says he was warned a passenger had a loaded gun.
The male suspect went back into the vehicle, opened the door, came out with a drawn weapon, pointed at the trooper. The trooper drew, fired shots. Suspect went back into the vehicle, exited the vehicle, traveled approximately 75 feet into the brush and disappeared. Some few moments later, he was located.
The suspect was pronounced dead at the scene. He's described as a white male in his late 20s. The white female driver was taken to the Oklahoma County Jail. Authorities have routinely suspended Trooper Blunt until a Highway Patrol Shooting Review Panel completes its investigation. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in far eastern Oklahoma County.
Most business owners hate the surprise safety inspections given by OSHA officials. Still, someone must check a company's performance for following safety guidelines. City Springs Service Center is the first Oklahoma City company to let the state inspect its work area. Oklahoma is just one of a few states where local officials can inspect a business and thereby avoid being looked at by OSHA for at least a year. The State Labor Department checks everything the federal government would, but company owners would much rather deal with the state.
We've been working with the state now for some 3 years on their program, and it only seems natural that they're local. They can come in and assist us in sound level tests and inhalant tests and this sort of thing. And they're available. We can reach them, so that's why we participated. It seems like the federal program comes in and, you know, if you don't comply, they'll fine you. They'll shut you down, so to speak. But the state people come in and they point out your problems and give you a chance to fix them, and it's much easier to work with them.
Using the State Labor Department in place of OSHA is an experiment at this point. OSHA can still step in at any time it feels a company may have serious safety violations. So far, the experiment is working to the satisfaction of OSHA, the state, and business owners. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City.
Salt Plains, anywhere in Oklahoma, might seem like a big boo-boo on Mother Nature's part. But curiosity here is no mistake, because from April to mid-October of every year, this windswept acreage near Cherokee, Oklahoma, becomes a mother lode of selenite crystals. The curious are mostly rockhounds and geologists. They come from everywhere, bringing only old clothes, simple tools, and lots of patience. They are quarrying for selenite, a crystal found just below the surface. The sandy conditions, plus the salty water, rapidly produce the selenite, which must be excavated very carefully. Selenite isn't rare, but pieces found here are the only ones anywhere that contain hourglass-shaped particles inside the transparent crystal.
There's a nice hourglass figure in it. The hourglass, a little sand crystal.
No, you got to get right down in the mud. Is that what they call a double?
Yes.
There aren't many folks near the Salt Plains that can tell you more about selenite than Delmar Coppic. When he's not hunting for crooks as the Alfalfa County Sheriff, he scavenges for rocks as his 30-year-old hobby.
Everyone enjoys finding something. And everyone enjoys finding something that's unique. And I don't know that any two of those crystals are exactly alike. And so each find that you make, it's I guess it's just a new find, and we all enjoy finding things, whether it's a dollar bill or a rock.
But Sheriff Coppic has found more than just a bag full of stones. Rock collecting has become a pastime, one that he and the Salt Plains can share with others. Tony Stizza, Action 4, Cherokee, Oklahoma.
Now that interest rates apparently are coming down, many people may be thinking about refinancing some old loans. Those who bought cars at high interest rates see the lower rates of today as a way of chopping those big monthly loan payments. While the prime lending rate is at its lowest point in years, bankers say it will be a while before those low interest rates filter down to the average consumer.
I think that'll be determined by how strong a comeback the economy makes and whether the consumer has the confidence that he's going to have a job, that prices have stabilized, that he can go ahead and borrow money at a reasonable rate without the fear that that his job is in jeopardy or that the price of money is going to go out of sight.
So if you're thinking about building or buying a new home, the best advice is to wait and shop around for an interest rate to suit your particular budget. Some people are concerned that lower interest rates will only force the price of houses up. But most economists don't think so, because sellers still appear more willing to make a deal than the buyer. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Just by CDs and money market funds.
Just money market and CDs, you put the money up there. You can make more political people doing it, political decisions, political this and that. Penny the stew. You got the Secretary of Agriculture. I'm not trying to criticize them. I think it's been mismanaged, and I think it's been for the benefit of farmers and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with doing things for the benefit of farmers, but you can't use school land money to do it with.
We have the Ku Klux Klan, the violence, the Ku Klux Klan, and the struggle for equality. The manual was developed. As I pointed out, the purpose of the manual and the development of the manual was basically to provide information, true information,
about the Klan and their racist attitude.
I'm standing here now with a scar on my knee that I got in Selma, Alabama. I know the effects of the Klan, and I know that if this, by seeing these negative pictures and by having 6 positive pictures in here, you can make someone anti-Klan, I don't believe it.
It's not necessarily about the Klan, but it's part of a project to make children and also teachers aware of what these things are and how that as teachers that they can present positive things to eliminate kids being recruited into areas, organizations that deal with racial separation and also turmoil.
What do you tell me?
The Midwest City Clinic will be the first of its kind in the country. Many states have not yet approved the controversial cancer treatment developed by Dr. Lawrence Burton. The fight for state approval of the immuno-augmentive treatment and the drive for building a clinic in Midwest City were led by Representative Carl Twidwell, whose wife is a cancer patient undergoing Dr. Burton's treatment. At the ceremony today, Burton applauded Twidwell's efforts and said the work in the new clinic will reinforce the body's natural immunities.
Now, this is no quick little cure-all, what have you. We're adding to what the patient produces themselves. It's similar to what you would have diabetes and insulin. The doctor who treats a diabetic, he's playing with one protein. We have 3.
Right now, the only place to get the treatment is in the Bahamas. Burton hopes that by moving the clinics to the States and by adding computers, getting the treatment will be simpler for the patients. The doctors can also keep a closer eye on the patient's progress. Today's groundbreaking puts them another step nearer the goal. The clinic should be open early next year. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Midwest City.
Okay? We thank you.
Bring up here.
When Carter was in, he did better than this. And since Reagan been in, he made everything worse.
There's not enough jobs, not enough everything, nothing right now. And it's got every one of us in a bad shape.
One of the perpetrators, Dr. Klein, in Houston, Texas, interviewed one of the perpetrators that you need to see. Just turn through each one of them, and I hope that
Cities have declared battle zones and mapped out adult entertainment areas, but nobody has ever gotten pornography to walk on the wild side and stay away from our homes and neighborhoods.
The law is very, very restrictive in these areas, as George Camp and some of the others are going to tell you in a few minutes. The United States Supreme Court has handed down some decisions. The primary case is one that came out of California, which makes it very difficult to prosecute pornography cases. It's protected by the First Amendment rights. You have to prove it has absolutely no literary, artistic, or any other kind of values. It's extremely difficult to make these cases, and it's all based upon contemporary community standards, which is whatever a jury says it is.
After last time, I guess so. This one? Okay.
Easy come, easy go.
Is a Minolta star projector, which you see there in front of you. It is about 8 feet long. It weighs 1 ton. It's capable of producing images of the sun, moon, stars, and planets. And if you were to buy one like this today, it would run somewhere around $230,000. So naturally, there are not many made. Ours is only one of 15 like it in the world today.
We have market and the like purchasing U.S. securities. We think we'll avoid that. First of all, pay any rate that's necessary in order to get... We did have a plus second quarter, 2.1% in growth of GNP, disappointing, but nevertheless a plus 0.8% in the third quarter. I think the quarter we're in, again, will be a plus quarter. Now, there's 3 plus quarters in a row following 2 minus quarters. Where did one end and the other start? This is not... We're not in a period of strong growth, but nevertheless we are on the plus side of the ledger.
Love it. That's the real plush, the real elegant, the real, oh, that's the most, you know, getting to sing with my band plus all of the strings and everything. Now, I was a music major at Tennessee Tech, and I've always appreciated all kinds of music if it's good, or any kind of music if it's good. But I never learned to play the violin. I played the cello and the orchestra at school, but I've always remained country.
We feel most of our employees will probably only eligible for 1 week of benefits. So that means they have to go it along 1 week without anything. It was planned almost from the start that if orders didn't increase, we would have to take a couple weeks down. And we prefer to take them back to back rather than at separate times.